Welcome, Spartans, to Halo TV Plus, part of Evolve, your home for Halo. I am your host, Oran, and on Halo TV Plus, my guests and I recap Halo's original TV show, Halo the Series, and discuss its unique contents and unique canon within the Silver Timeline. Joining me tonight is David. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Oran. Glad to be back. Actually, quite excited to be back, to be honest.
Welcome back to the show. Yeah. You. It's been a while. You helped me out back in May of last year during the writer's strike and all that. So it's great to have you back.
I know. It doesn't feel that long ago, but it was. Like, it really was.
Oh my gosh. So true. Like, I think back on just 2023 as a whole, and it's just like, I did so much that year, but and it it was only a year ago, but it just feels like it was so much longer.
Yeah.
Crazy stuff. But we're back. Today, we're going to do a retrospective look at Season 1, because Season 2 is coming out this week. As you know, we're recording this on Sunday. This will be out for everybody on Monday the 5th, and we get the next episodes on the 8th. So we have to kind of look back, see what Season 1 did well, see what it did not do well, talk about kind of where things ended with our characters, and maybe talk about how Season 2 we think will unfold. Last episode with Aaron and I talked about kind of like what you may need to know from core canon based off of the episode titles for Season 2. So there's kind of some predictions in there. We'll kind of maybe talk a little bit more tonally or thematically as opposed to just actual events or characters like we did in the last episode. And yeah, that's what we got for in store for today. So David, you rewatched Season 1 before recording this, right?
I did. I'm coming in super hot. I literally just watched the last 3 episodes today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was this the first time? This was the first time you've rewatched it since it aired in 2022?
Yeah, I watched it once, watched every episode once, and that was it. And then I hadn't come back to it. And I had it in the back of my brain of like, oh, I'd love to go back and rewatch it before Season 2 starts. And that just never happened. And then I was listening to you guys talk about it on one of the previous episodes, and I was like, now is the time. This is it. And if you don't do it now, it won't be done, and the second season will be here. So I know we talked to you about it. We talked about we would do an episode of TV Plus together. I was like, let's do it. Let's binge watch Season 1. Yeah. I had a great time. There are certain parts of it that I actually skipped on purpose. I sat there with the remote and just said, no, I don't want this. No. And then there was other bits where I was like, it kind of reaffirmed everything. I didn't come back on it thinking like total revision of how I felt about it, but I think the most that I disliked about it, I think, was just story decisions. Like, I loved the setting. I liked the props. I thought they built up the characters really well. It's just something about certain characters and the way the story went. I was like, oh, I just didn't like it. And not to say that it's bad or good. It just didn't gel with me. It's the same true now.
I would agree. This is the first time I've rewatched it as well since 2022. And I watched every episode maybe 3 times because of doing this show for last season. So like I would watch it one for just pure enjoyment, second to take notes, and then the third time when I actually recorded. So I've seen all the episodes multiple times. But then once the finale came and we kind of closed Season 1 of the show, I didn't really look back at it and just kind of let it just simmer and sit, and it kind of just fell off my radar, really doing other things over the last year and a half. And for Season 2, I really wanted to rewatch it and kind of just get familiar again. But also, this would be the first time that I've watched episodes kind of back to back. I was able to see the first 2 episodes before it released with like a promotional event here in New York. And so that was the only time that I really watched episodes back to back. But everything else was, always spaced out by a week. And so for me, it was very interesting kind of watching it for the first time with almost like a pairing or like maybe only a day between episodes. Because I think some of these episodes that they were filmed together in a sense because of their block filming and just kind of how they tell certain stories. I think they have that kind of stronger connection. So it's just very interesting stuff. So I think we'll kind of dive in to maybe just each episode, or if there's something in particular that really rings out to you that you just want to kind of touch on. But we'll kind of give the listeners a overall recap of Season 1 and just kind of talk about how it sits with us a year and a half later. But before we dive in, I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're new to Halo TV Plus, welcome. We are part of Evolve that hosts a variety of other Halo podcast shows like Podcast Evolved, HCS Pro Talk, Mission Debrief, Builds of Blocks, and Halo Book Club. You can learn more about each of those shows on our website, evolvedhalo.com, and you can search for all of them on your favorite podcast feed. If you also want to check us out on social media, we have Facebook, Twitter/X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and probably some other ones I don't even know about these days.
Whatever the kids are using, we'll be there.
Yeah, whatever the kids are using. Ian's all over it. Evolved also hosts another show called I Would Have Been Your Podcast, which is a Patreon-exclusive podcast for our patrons who support us. If you're not yet subscribed and want to learn more, you can head over to patreon.com/HaloEvolved. Our patrons receive a variety of exclusive rewards, such as early episodes, access to our original 18-song soundtrack, unique swag, and access to our private Discord channel where you can communicate and chat with the hosts and get other tidbits on there. Shout out to all of our current subscribers. Thank you guys so much for continued, kind of the long-standing patrons for all these years. We keep going and making this content because you guys keep supporting us. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you, you crazy people.
I also wanted to mention that if you didn't see the Halo the Series Declassified, which is a sort of like after the show special that Paramount Plus produces with Sydney Goodman, the, I guess, quote unquote, first episode of that sort of second series, if you want to think about it that way, already came out. I was able to watch it the other day, and it looked like it wasn't going to release until the 5th. I'm not really sure. Maybe there's another one, but some of the social media promotions are saying that it's going to premiere on Monday, but from the description, it just seems like that is what was in this first episode that's already on there. But anyway, you can check it out. It's called Inside Season 2, and it includes a few behind-the-scenes featurettes, as well as interviews with Kiki Wolfkill, Pablo Schreiber, and other cast and crew. It's pretty interesting, about 20 or so minutes, and they have another like trailer that recaps Season 1 and a few other cool new tidbits from Season 2 that I think I'm able to kind of piece together some more of the story, which is very interesting and has me excited. So if you wanted to check that out before we get started, you can pause and go watch that, or check it out after you listen. So David, I guess I'll just give you the floor. Is there anything, like, do you just want to break down kind of each episode, how they sort of sat with you? Or is there something that you just want to kind of say off the bat? Like, is there something you just really liked from Season 1, watching it again, or something that you maybe saw differently or changed your opinion of? Or it was something just so wrong that you just have to say it from the get-go that it just bothered you the whole time?
Yeah, I don't know if it was kind of wrong, but I think from the positive perspective, I think they did such a great job of getting you, like, in the universe super quickly. I really like, again, the violence for episode 1 caught me off guard again. I was like, oh yeah, this dude blows up into bits, and there were like people getting decimated here, and the lead, when he like knocks into like the bunker and just murders everybody, I was like, oh yeah, this show has a tone to it straight away. I think the Spartans are so well done. I think the sound and the weight to them is excellent. They build up John as the ultimate, and I think they did a great job of that. Silver Team as a whole, I kind of wanted to feel more too, and I think Kai is like a secret winner of the season. Like, I really like Kai's story and arc, and I like it more watching it again. She's such a kind of goofy person when she's kind of let loose, and I kind of liked seeing that. Yeah,
so Silver Team had kind of like a strange dynamic to them. Like, I feel like when they're fighting the Covenant in those like 3 battles, like that's really strong and really good, but kind of outside that, whenever they're interacting with each other, the connection just didn't quite fit together like I was expecting, and some of that I think is sort of character development and character tension that I do like. It's kind of like, I don't know, a flip of the coin almost, to where some scenes just kind of sound awkward and some other scenes are like, okay, I see what they're doing, and because it is kind of artificial, well, not artificial, but like they're changing sort of the canon and how things are put together, it is like they're making those right changes, but some of the other ones just kind of didn't line up, I guess, and it always kind of left me with like a wishy-washy feeling, because like I said, sometimes they nail it, sometimes it's a little awkward.
Yeah, I think they weren't perfect together, which is kind of a little bit disappointing because like it comes to like a really emotional head in the kind of the second to last episode when like they're pitted against each other. And like that's a really great scene, and I love how it's all built up with like Halsey initiating her own protocols. I mean, like the perfect character in the show was Halsey. Natasha McElhone is superbly cast. She's just so well done, and how like
her and Parangoski, I just watching again. Just I think they're the truest of everybody. Yeah,
she's just so good, and all the kind of the bait and switch with the clone, and it's just like, oh man, it's just she's just how she burns through people, and I just love watching her and seeing her like always on the go with a plan, even when she's knocked down. So it just seeing it, like where I was going with like just seeing the Spartans against each other, and you had the standoff where like they're all pointing guns at each other, and it's like this felt good, but I think could have felt way better if the team was built up together a bit better over the season. Because they felt, like you said, kind of chop and change. Some of the scenes worked and some of them kind of didn't.
Yeah, like one of the things that really hit me from the beginning is when after Chief finds the artifact, like he's very drawn to it, and he says, "You three take the Covenant ship back, and I'm going to take the Condor back with Quan and the ship, like and the artifact by myself." And I was just like really? Like, I don't know, that just kind of perked me up again. And I was like, I wonder if I had this similar thought back then. I was just like, that just seems odd that he would do that. But I guess it's justified that he's just so intrigued. He's having these memories that he wants to be alone and he wants to kind of meditate on it. So I kind of get that. But because it happened so soon, it's like, okay, I want to be used. Like, I get that we're entering the story when it's changing for him.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously they were, I guess, more typical Spartans before episode 1. And we're entering, as the audience, we're entering the story, as late as possible, so then we can see the change and the disruption. And that's what an exciting incident is, really. But I guess it just would have been nice to just have a little bit of on-screen foundation instead of kind of just implying it with, character dialogue and other things. Because I noticed that a few times of like Parangoski being like, in later episodes saying things like, "Oh, that's not the Chief I would know. Like the Chief I know would tear that, McKee limb from limb trying to get information." And I'm just like, yeah, that's right. Like that is the Chief I know. And where was he in the beginning of the season? Like, so it was a little awkward. And like you said in the very beginning, like there are just some sort of decisions here and there that just kind of leave you a little off kiltered. And it just kind of is what it is. But I want to stay on Halsey for another minute. I rewatched, or during the rewatch, I got to episode 6, which is Solace, which is kind of after the big fight. And McKee comes back, and the big keystone gets taken by the Covenant. And it's kind of like the sit rep, kind of like, okay, how is everyone doing? Kai's like injured. Who is McKee? Who do we trust? And we start getting different points of view from everybody. We get the scene where John locks Halsey in the decontamination sort of chamber and does that whole standoff. And like this whole episode, I'm like thinking to myself, and I'm like, man, this episode just is awesome. Like this is my favorite episode of the whole season. And I went back and re-listened to our like digest and our analysis episode from before. Which I think was actually with you. Now that I think about it,
was it?
And I think on that show I said that this is my favorite episode so far, and I think it's true now. Seeing everything, like
way to be consistent, Oran. Well done.
Yeah, look at that. But just like the way Halsey just tries to continue to manipulate literally everybody in this one episode, just like that on top of Parangoski doing what she's doing, and like how all the characters sort of like converge at this point in the story, I just think was very well done. And I think it's honestly the high point of the entire first season. And I just hope that they're able to capture that type of tension and characterization and just character play in the next season. And I'm optimistic with James Ackerson, but I really like that from the Halo show, I guess. And that's something that really stung out from me. And I think it all starts from Halsey and kind of what she's doing, and then it builds with Cortana and John and Parangoski and even Miranda. So that was probably my favorite episode. Do you know which episode might be yours?
That's a good question, and I probably should have been thinking of this when I was watching it. I think it might be one of the earlier ones. Do I like? Man, I don't know. Maybe even that or the one before.
Or what about is there like a good sequence or whether it's action or
well, all the action scenes,
character dynamic,
the action
or is it
scenes
just
are pretty
are you
good.
just really in love with Halsey? And because honestly, episode 8, that was the one you're talking about earlier, where everyone's kind of turning on each other. Like the second half of that episode is really good. The first half's a slog, and we get Master Cheeks and all that, which no one wants. But like once all of that gets kind of behind us, and then Halsey initiates what is that? Zeta Protocol?
Z Protocol, yeah.
Z Protocol. Like I literally perked up because I was like, on my phone or whatever, disinterested after the whole McKee and John thing. But then once that, I was like, oh yeah, like stuff's like about to happen. Like I completely forgot and like started tuning in and all that. Would you say like that sort of climactic moments kind of what sit really well with you?
Yeah, I did really like that scene, the Spartans turn against each other. That whole sequence for me, just seeing Halsey manipulate everybody, like you said, in one episode. Even the really lame attempt to like turn McKee. I thought that was kind of. Yeah. I was like, what? She just kept going nonstop, and moved over. I also like the Cortana moments. I like that whole scene with her and her clone and like them talking to each other. I loved all of it. And then just casually killing the clone. It's like, yeah, do it. Yeah. I love it. I loved it, yeah.
And the clones knew it was coming, too. Yeah. Like, the clone's
the clone
as
knew
smart
everything.
as Halsey, so she knows.
Yeah, I thought that was a great conversation between them. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I have one episode. It's just parts of it, you know what I mean? There isn't an episode I tell you and just like, this one's my favorite.
Gotcha. I think I like, the reason I like 6 so much is because of how connected everything is in that one episode. Because in the earlier, like, first 4 episodes or whatever, they have a lot of threads that they're pulling, and the pacing is kind of extended, maybe more than it needs to be, but in terms of John figuring out who he is, figuring out what this artifact is, and then Halsey doing her thing, and Miranda trying to find out what she wants to find out, and her studies, and learning about that tension, and then we have the whole Quan thing over here going on, and so there's a lot of different... And also Kai trying to learn what she's learning. So like they really spend a lot of time in the earlier episodes focusing on the characters so that you can, as a viewer, get to know who these characters are. So then in the later part of the season, we can now see them all in action and everything is a little bit more connected and fluid and we can jump seamlessly through them all. Whereas it's like, oh, well, this is now this character's moment to open up to the audience and kind of things like that. So yeah, I get what you mean, how it's a little bit more selective and sort of highlighted in sort of the first half of the season. Because obviously I think it changes at that season 6 or episode 6 sort of mark when that, or what is it, episode 5 is Reckoning. That's the big battle sequence, which, was still really cool. I hope that production value stays.
Yeah, for sure.
But, on the other Spartans, you talked a little bit about Kai, how she kind of was, how do you describe that, like unsung
I think she's like the
hero?
Yeah, she's like the secret winner, I think, of the show. I really like her character arc. I think she was well cast. I liked seeing how she turned. Just the idea of like her seeing Chief and being like, oh yeah, okay, he's doing that, I'm going to do that. And find out why.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. No, I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, I like how it allowed us to have 2 Spartans going through this transformation and not just John. Because I was thinking about that during watching, like, during my rewatch of, like, yeah, okay, Kai removes her pellet pretty quickly after Chiefs does. And they have these sort of private chats a few times. And I didn't realize this really when I was first watching it because I was watching it week to week, but they do go through similar experiences and realizations, and they're able to confide each other kind of throughout, which I think the show needed a little bit because John doesn't want to talk to Cortana about any of this, and there's no one else he could really talk about it with because Halsey's lying to him. And so it was interesting to see her develop through that. And also with Kai, I really like her relationship with Miranda that I think had some really good highlights during, I forget which episode it was.
It was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah, I think it was episode 3 or something where they're talking about the language and trying to learn the words, and then Kai is giving them information about like what it was like to being raised as a Spartan and all that. And I feel like those moments were great, and I kind of wanted a few more later in the season. I mean, we got a little bit of it, I guess, kind of throughout, but I feel like Kai and Miranda, or just Kai having relationships with other of those characters outside of the Spartans, has a lot of potential and possibilities that I wouldn't mind seeing more of.
Yeah, well, I also like the dynamic of like, here is Halsey's daughter who she ignored, and here is Halsey's quote-unquote daughter that she raised. Do you know?
Yeah.
And just seeing the differences between the two and how they interacted with it, and how Halsey's like a massively defining character for both of them. And I love the whole like Kai kind of schooling Miranda on a few things. I thought that was kind of really, like on her like assumptions about Spartans and stuff like that. That whole sequence, like where they're doing more or less like the cultural exchange, I thought was brilliant. I thought it was like really well done. Of like,
yeah.
But of course, like who spends the most time with the aliens? You know, the Spartans. So they pick up words and understand things that like others don't. That was really well done.
Yeah, and Riz is like fluent or something. I feel like I missed that, but they drop that in there really quickly on how Riz knows different languages, as if she's like Vale from
I missed that altogether the first time around.
I think that was just kind of thrown in there, and I was just like, oh wow. It's like, yeah, this is if she has that skill set, that's a huge asset that you should be capitalizing on. So speaking of Riz, actually, and this is me just kind of jumping ahead, but I'm really interested to see where she goes in season 2, because her and Vanek, I think, were a little sidelined, which I was kind of okay with, because what we did see of them was great. But she basically almost dies at the end of season 1.
She gets a plasma grenade to the chest. Yeah, so like
like the shoulder, and like part of her shoulder is like missing, and then her like half of her torso, they had to like what is the word?
Cauterize.
Like cauterize, yeah. And then even in some of the season 2 promotional videos, you can see like her arm being like stitched together, or rather healing as if it, was stitched together. And it reminded me of Soren's arm that is already like mangled and disfigured. And so I'm very interested to see how she sort of recovers and what sort of demons and
I wonder if they
PTSD she experiences.
It would be cool if they went the cat route. Maybe she had to replace her arm.
Ooh.
Like she's in with something like a prosthetic.
I like that.
That'd be interesting to see how they cope with it. And I'm also imagining that in season 2, you guys I might have thought this right, that the hormone pellets are gone from both Riz and Vanek. I'd like to see them develop. I don't see any particular reason why they keep them now that they've all come to terms in the last episode with each other.
We didn't talk about that on the last episode, but that is a good point. That's they could explore that, and that's something that I kind of want from season 2 as a whole. And we've kind of been beating around this bush on how Silver Team, felt fragmented during this season. So now that they're all on the same page, they all know what Halsey and Jacob Keyes did to them as kids. Now there's sort of a even stronger bond that they already, in theory had because of what they went through as kids. But then now, in terms of what we've seen on screen, they can be even stronger. And I think it would be great to see that unfold and what that relationship is like. And if Kai and John are able to convince Vanek and Riz to remove their pellets, then that would be a very interesting fire team to kind of explore with and just see where that goes. And I think it just, I like that. I would be happy if they kind of explore that. And they can just kind of easily throw that out in a line, because season 2 takes place about 6 months after season 1.
Oh, interesting.
And some of the casts, I think Pablo Schreiber said it, that like during the course of the season, you'll kind of get fed a little bit of what happened during that time.
So we'll get some flashbacks.
Yeah, maybe something like that. We'll talk about that a little bit, because I have a few theories.
Okay. But
we'll kind of get that towards the end of this episode. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential still for the Spartans, and just the idea that you mentioned with Riz having a bionic arm like Kat, something that Aaron mentioned on the last episode is that he kind of predicts that Kai will kind of assume the role as Kurt and kind of be the commander of the Spartan Threes and kind of doing her kind of own thing and becoming her own leader. And so it's interesting to see these Spartans, Kai, Riz, Vanek, and Silver Team, assume the identities of these other Spartans that we have seen from core canon, which is a very common trope in adaptation. One of my favorite things from that Chernobyl show is that, like, there's like this doctor character that kind of goes on and does all of her doctor things, but like her character in the show doesn't exist in real life, but she kind of embodies the just
a whole team of people,
of doctors that were
involved
fighting the Chernobyl event and all that, and so they condensed all of those real people into one singular character, and it's just easier from a storytelling point of view. So I would very much be okay with some of these other. I mean, I would love to see, you know, Kurt fighting in action, or like Sergeant Johnson, or, you know, all that, of course. But like, if you're able to pick and choose attributes or character moments and kind of insert them in these characters that we already know and we already like, I'm all for it. So,
other than the Spartan Threes, which we're theorizing exists and will show up, I am hoping we get more Spartans, that it's not just Silver Team.
Yeah,
because I know they did in season 1. They said 35 survived, and they talked about at least one planet that John was on where they lost a Spartan. I can't remember which one. I think it was like Naomi or something like that. A name throughout, so we're saying, okay, there's that minus Soren and then Silver Team, so that there should be 28 active Spartans, we think.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it's assumed that at least 1 or 2 are dead, maybe even more. I think it'd be great to see other Spartans. I think I read somewhere on like Reddit that it would be interesting if we got a Noble Team type of fire team that just is a different group of Spartans that just kind of show up, and they fight either alongside or they're doing a different mission on Reach, and maybe they're the red shirts, so to speak, and our heroes are
maybe they're heroes. Gold team or whatever, you know. But I think that would be cool. I'd like to see, if you're doing the Fall of Reach, I think you need more than just Silver Team to do it. And I hope they're not taking that approach, which is these 4 Spartans are representative of hundreds. I'm hoping there's more to it.
Part of me feels like they could go down the road of just introducing the Spartan Threes, and that's kind of where the cannon fodder comes from.
Yeah.
But I do agree, like, having more Spartan 2s would be great to kind of bring into the fold, and then just kind of see how that unfolds.
Especially if they're all going to have their origins revealed to them, and seeing how different groups maybe take it. Do they remove the pellets? Is that an option, or is it something they're forced to do or keep? Or I don't know. There's lots there. They can show and do. And I don't know if the show will go into that, to be perfectly honest. It sounds like it has to do a lot already. I don't know how much time will get spent on that.
Well, speaking of Spartans, let's stay on this. And what about Soren? So, rewatching the season, I enjoyed Soren's character, and and again, the acting. The show's casted, I think, very well. But rewatching it, I think I was a little less enthused about kind of what Soren ended up actually doing at the end of the day.
Yeah, same.
And felt that he was not utilized, I think, as strong as he could have been. Did you have any sort of
I still didn't
revelations?
Like it. Not really revelations. I understood that he needed to be there because John needed somewhere to go that wasn't the UNSC. And that's all he knew is other Spartans. So the fact that they would have a Spartan out there in the wild that John just knew exactly how to find, but hadn't told anybody, and that he's just leading this whole pirate moon-based thing, I'm okay. I like that, but that's about as much as I liked about what they did with him. I don't like the whole Quan story. I didn't like him being kind of a babysitter to this. I would have liked to have seen a bit more of, here's a Spartan as a family man, as a pirate, as like a non-good guy living his own life. I think there was way more they could have done with him. So I don't know how much. I know he's casted back, and I'm not sure how he plays into the Reach storyline, but we'll see.
Well, I hope he basically gets pulled in somehow, like, because he's back for season 2. His wife and his son are also back. Those actors are returning, and so I want him to just kind of get pulled in somehow. Like, maybe the Covenant attacked the rubble, or maybe the UNSC finds him and he, or like, I don't know. There are a few different ways you can write him in, but I would like him to basically go to Reach or go somewhere, or maybe Halsey finds him. Maybe him and Halsey become the kind of rebels. But like, I feel like he needs a reason to kind of leave his life that he's made and to go and pursue something that's greater and better and beyond him. Because I feel like he more or less just he ended up in the same position that he was in when the season started. Like, he really didn't have any character change. Like, he didn't even like feel any different really towards Quan at the end of that whole ordeal.
There was that end line of like, he says, "I don't believe in joining lost causes," and she says, "I don't believe you." That kind of implies to me that they're like, that he's only really going to be involved in her side of the story. So whatever they end up doing with her, I imagine Soren's going to be her go-to, that he's going to come into that side of it. And also kind of speaking of that, I don't know what happened, but I do not remember at all her like spirit traveling and seeing her ancestor with a portal and what is clearly a feckin' monitor. Yeah. I don't know why, I just did not remember that. I saw that today and I was like, what the
I was thinking about that. I was talking, I think, to Aaron on the other show, and we were talking about the monitor, and I like had to think to myself. I was like, wait, am I just imagining this, or did this actually happen? Like, a monitor was in the TV show, and then I also was like, why was the Master Chief on Magical again in a tent? Like, I couldn't remember why that was a thing, and then when we watched the episode, I was like, oh yeah, it's because it's this whole dream thing.
That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
That was the stupid. That is the lowest point, I think. Yeah. I would rather. Ooh, I don't know if I want to say that.
Step it up, Oran.
The sex scene. I don't know what I like less, the sex
scene or the dream scene. Yeah.
Or the dream scene, but like I feel like I don't like the dream scene more because it just doesn't really amass to anything. Because I mean, like, I told you this before the show, and I don't know if I really want to get into it, but like while I was watching that episode, I like almost rewrote how I think the Quan storyline should unfold, kind of with my own fan fiction, just to make me care about her and Soren. And I'm not going to get into it. Maybe I'll do it on the Discord. But I think the information that she learns from the Mystics, there is no bad reason for her to just learn that information from her aunt in the Homecoming episode. Because her aunt tells her like, "Oh, your father is protecting Madrigal because he found some mystics in the desert, and they told him to do it." And she's like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "I don't know." Like, if you literally just had her aunt tell her, "Oh, here's the journal," and it's like you're flipping through the journal, and there's a monitor, or maybe there's like a futuristic 3D video thing, and we can see the monitor, then it's like, okay, well then that like 70% of that episode doesn't need to exist, and you can focus on something more interesting, and then you have that other chick kill her aunt, and you're like, oh shit, we're finally getting something interesting. But anyway, that's one of the changes I would make to kind of just make episode 7 more digestible and more interesting. But yeah, to your point, like, it's so forgettable, and like, yeah, it was bad. But what I want out of season 2, because obviously we have to stick around with Quan. She's back. She's doing something. The monitor and the portal means something, which does intrigue me. 343 and everybody else, they have a moment to like literally start over with Quan to make her interesting. I just hope they do it, because if they don't, then I feel bad for the actress that has to do all this stuff, and her character just sucks.
Yeah. I'm imagining they're making them, that must be some, the guy, like the ancestor pretty much said like, oh, he'll come back, he'll see him again. So you imagine that John has to come back to Madrigal to use the portal. Maybe the portal takes him to Halo. Maybe, I don't know. But there's more going on there. Or maybe, I know you probably might discuss this already, maybe Madrigal is Onyx. Maybe Madrigal is not a real world. Maybe it's a shield world. Maybe that's why it's so important. Maybe there's more to it there.
I think we discussed that on like when the episode actually came out.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a cool reveal that it's a shield world, and Onyx. Maybe they rename it or something like that. I mean, Onyx is a title for the next season.
That's what I'm thinking. That maybe it comes into play there because I'm sick of Magical. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of being there. I mean, there needs to be more to it. That'd be the only. That'd be a way to get me interested in it and maybe care a little bit more about Quan's story. But I think they should probably explain more what's going on with these mystics and whatnot.
I feel like you don't even need the mystics anymore. I feel like you just. No. You forget them, and you just have Quan find this well or something, and then she gets approached by the Monitor. It'd be awesome if it was Tim Debo.
Yeah.
Debo. I mean, I guess that wouldn't really work if he's supposed to be the Monitor of
Halo,
but anyway, I there's potential to make Quan interesting, and they have a second chance to do it with almost a clean slate. So I just hope they figure that one out. Same with Soren. Again, he basically is in the same position that he was at the beginning of the season, which I thought was just a waste. So, looking at our characters, we haven't really talked about McKee. I thought she died at the end.
Same thing. I was just thinking that watching it, but then watching it today, I was like, okay, they've said she's coming back. They have her cast. So
they have her cast, and I think she's the one talking to the people of Reach, like in that in one of the trailers.
I think you're right.
To the people of Reach. I mean, her accent sounds a little different, but I'm pretty sure it's her. And she gives her whole speech on how she's going to kill everybody.
Unless it's either because obviously the prophets were like, oh my god, we need the demon now. McKee is dead. We have to keep the demon alive so we can access the stones. Unless it's, of course, okay, Chief got away, demon's gone. Then they're left with the quote-unquote body of McKee. So maybe they do some crazy healing mumbo-jumbo alien technology.
They have their own mystics.
Yeah, to kind of keep her alive. Or just general technology. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they just, okay, she's only been dead for a couple of minutes. Let's revive her or keep her as much as possible as we can alive so that they can use her again.
Okay.
Or it's flashbacks. Or she's like a spirit form thing talking to John from the artifacts. I don't know. She
gets her consciousness gets composed into the artifacts.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
She's like a librarian projection.
Yeah. She
that could be interesting.
Artifact talks to John via.
It'd be weird to explain all that, but
they have a lot of weird stuff to explain in this show.
Well, talking with McKee in terms of the season that we've seen, and not really predicting where or how she turns up in season 2. I still felt that her like backstory and reasoning for hating all of humanity still fell flat for me. I remember being really excited for her before the season came out, and they were talking her up on like, oh, well, this is kind of the character she's going to be, and she's kind of the face of the Covenant because she's a human actor as opposed to a prosthetic or a mechanic or animatronic or whatever, and budget and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm interested to see how it all comes together. But like I still like that I would also rewrite like her whole backstory. Like I feel like you still need more of her being like indoctrinated, and like the scene that comes to mind for me is like the way Reth talks to the Master Chief when he was abducted and was like having to like test and touch other artifacts to see if they get any sort of response. Like, I feel like we should have seen that with McKee as a kid. And they're, like, torturing her. She tries to touch things, and then she touches one of them, and it comes to life. And then it's, like, a full 180. And then now they're super nice to her.
Yeah.
And they're, like, treating her wounds. And then, like, spewing, like, oh, well, since you do all this stuff...
You're the Holy One.
That must mean you're on our side. So
yeah. I love the concept.
You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like those characterizations, like, that wasn't there. So then in the second half of the season, when she's with Chief and everybody, it just, like, you can't tell, like, which side she's on.
Yeah.
Because, like, she doesn't even know which side she's on. And I feel like that would have been a much stronger character, like, confliction. Like, well, where do I land? Like, because this is what the Covenant had been telling me, but we don't really know that. We just know that, oh, she was raised for 20 years. And, like, Keyes has, like, a throwaway line of, like, you can't just undo 20 years of indoctrination, which... Yes, but like...
But then Chief immediately says, I did. I was like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, but it took you like 3 or 4 episodes, Chief. Like,
yeah.
you know, like, so I think she wasn't as effective as I wanted her to be, but I think she has a great accent, and when she talks Healy, it sounds so cool.
It really does.
And I just kind of hope she has a little bit more of a purpose.
She had a great purpose in season 1. I mean, I love the idea of the character that, like, we know how the Covenant feels about humanity, but the fact that they have to rely upon them to get what they want from them, that they would take a child, indoctrinate it, give it the name as Blessed One, and totally put him on a pedestal. I love that idea. That's a great concept. I'm really, like, that the show did that was clever. And then, like, sending her out on her own little mission, that felt kind of a little bit weak.
Yeah. I think they just they had a few strides, but they just missed the mark a few times as well. So I'm just interested to see what they do with her again, because it's like, do we just get more of the same? I mean, the UNSC already, like, you can't really dupe the UNSC again because they all know. So, like, is she just now super enemy? I don't know. So we'll kind of see, I guess.
But I also feel like she's not 100% with the Covenant. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like she saw John getting his ass kicked, and that's why she ran out and touched the artifact in the first place. Yeah. To kind of save him, which was a great kind of scene because I'd forgotten about the big kind of wind explosion and then watching like hundreds of Healy get blown off this mountain. I was like, that was pretty cool. So I thought it was well done. But I get the impression she's not all 100% with them. And there's going to be a point where she realizes the betrayal of, like, I think the prophets are really well done.
The prophets clearly want to get rid of her as soon as they can.
Yeah, I mean
they had that scene, which was a nice little. I mean, it was like 15 seconds. It was great. Yeah. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. Like, she does waver a little bit, and it to me it seems like she's unsure who to be more aligned with. Yeah, she's for sure. Kind of confused and conflicted, which I think is a good sort of internal character struggle to have. I'm just curious how they're gonna take this into season 2, because like we said, it was kind of handled mixed in season 1. I'm just curious how they're going to try to do better in season 2.
Yeah, and I'm also wondering, running out, is that voice they play at Reach, is that because that's the only human voice they have? And is it just like a composite of, like, this is how we speak English? They just play her voice to kind of, like, speak for them or something like that. I don't know. If McKee's not with them, if she's just like...
Oh, gotcha. You know, yeah, that could explain why it's a little bit of a different accent. Yeah, if they kind of reverse engineer or something like that with their technology to kind of get her to say things like that. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? I mean, we talked a little bit about Parangoski, Miranda, and Keyes. Those are kind of the other main characters that are in the show.
Parangoski's perfect, but I wasn't too strong on the others. To be honest, but both Keyes weren't characters I was in love with. I don't mind, like, I don't mind that, like, Miranda is, like, more of a scientist now. That's kind of totally fine, but I don't know. She's lacking something. I don't know what it is. They're kind of trying to make her be Halsey and then also her own thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She continues to get, like, stonewalled. Like, she takes a step forward, but then she immediately gets that step taken back. Yeah. And so she's constantly moving up and then stepping down, stepping up and stepping down. And so it's kind of a strange sort of dynamic, which I think is strong in the sense that it allows her as a character to kind of continue to fight, to kind of come up. And, like, you have that great, again, I think it's Solace, where she gets to be close to the artifact and I think it's on Homecoming. She gets to have some personal time and have, quote unquote, moments to shine and things like that. And she gets those, but then, yeah, they kind of get taken back from her. But I feel like the interplay between Halsey, Miranda, and Keyes, I don't know. I feel like they did kind of what they could do with that sort of family dynamic. I mean, I don't really know how they would have necessarily done it better, but it always kind of skirted that line of, like, okay, this is like an intergalactic military, like, force. Like, are we really gonna have, like, this family drama in the middle of it? Like, it just kind of tiptoed that line of, for me anyway, of being just a little too over the top, and I don't really know how you do it any different. Yeah. But maybe with Halsey being gone or just on her own, Miranda is able to maybe shine a little bit more and actually do the job she wants to do, and we kind of get past all this backstory and history and
Yeah, I think so.
and things like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we can have, and same thing for Keys, because I feel like this whole season, Keys was just in the middle of Halsey and Parangoski and Miranda, and we never really saw a Captain Keys from the games.
No, and that's
like at all.
That's the kind of biggest thing. I'd like to see him more in that role than the way he was, because I'm not even sure what is he Captain Keys, or he almost felt like he was an admiral or something kind of more higher up.
No, I mean, I don't know about rank, but like I think he is a captain, but he's high up there.
Yeah.
But Lord Hood is technically Admiral Hood.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's another sort of military like rank that's above him, at least in that inner circle. Because a lot of those other like council members, those like just
they feel like non-military
people.
Yeah.
They wear just normal clothing like Parangoski, so they're not wearing like a uniform.
I hope they put him in a ship. That's kind of what I want to see. Like, we didn't get ship to ship combat at all really in season 1, so I'm hoping to see some of his, because what was his thing? He was a genius. He was good in, you know what I mean? We never see that, so I'd like to see them do something with him, a bit more with him.
Okay. Well, we'll kind of, I guess, wrap up a little bit here. We'll start kind of winding down. I wanted to say where we leave all the characters from season 1 and kind of maybe jump off from there to see where we want them to go. I mean, we touched a little bit, I think, on what we want from these characters in season 2.
Yeah.
But maybe we can be a little bit more specific, and I can kind of just, whatever one speaks to you. But in terms of our core characters that we have on the show, we have Chief, Kai, Vanek, and Riz. The 4 of them, they're on the Condor with the artifact en route back to Reach after retrieving it. Cortana has full control over Chief, and he doesn't say anything to any of his other...
Yeah, so this is one thing I'm kind of curious. So, like, obviously the trailers for season 2 have already ruined the whole... I don't know if I can bring you back, John. Is John just dead by Cortana taking over? So, like, where did they go? Like, there must be something must happen to clearly be that she's able to bring John back as John, and that he can take over his body again. Because otherwise, they wouldn't have shown everything that they've shown of John. Do you know?
Yeah, and I think this is what Pablo Schreiber was referring to when he was saying that there's a bit of a time cut, and you're going to find out what happens in that time cut later in the show. So I think episode 1 is going to be very similar to episode 1 of season 1, where you're going to have Master Chief being the Master Chief. He doesn't have Cortana in him.
You think they won't explain that at all in the first episode?
I don't think they're going to explain it. I think they're just going to have it there, and like I think Cortana is just not even going to be there. Or maybe Cortana is talking to him, but because John is able to speak, like we'll just be like, okay, so we know that they were able to separate it. And then just during the episode or another episode, they'll explain how, I guess. But I think you're just going to start. I mean, you have to start episode 1 with some sort of conflict. I think they're going to try to save a planet from being glassed, and it's not going to succeed. So then now we know what happens to a planet that gets glassed. So then when it happens to Reach, it hits better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they showed that one planet, Criterion, getting glassed, but that was like very quick.
Right. Yeah. I think like episode 1 is all about like them trying to save a planet from getting glassed, and it's not going to work. And that planet, they're going to leave, and everyone's going to die, and it's going to be sad. But I think that operation and that engagement, like John will be John, and it's like, where's Cortana, or why, or how is Cortana? If Cortana's still like in the helmet, and it's like, okay, well, like how did that like get resolved? Because it doesn't start immediately after that. And I don't know how they're going to explain it, I guess, but I feel like that's the only way to do it with a time cut, because otherwise you're implying that Cortana has had control over Chief for 6 months.
Possibly.
I mean, I guess that's a possibility. I just think that's just weird.
Yeah.
Like you open season 2 with being like, oh man, we've been working for 6 months. and we finally separated Cortana and Chief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meanwhile, this whole Covenant War is happening. So, yeah, no, that's probably one of my biggest questions just going into season 2 is kind of how they're going to do the Cortana Chief relationship, because it's maybe they reinsert Cortana in the more traditional sense, like from the games and stuff, so then she doesn't have that same level of brain control. So, like we mentioned already, Riz is super badly injured from the plasma grenade. Kai and Vanek are otherwise fine. Miranda, Keyes, and Parangoski are all at FleetCom. They're basically just in the rubble of FleetCom after the huge sort of event that happened in episodes 8 and 9, as well as Halsey's clone dying during the interrogation. And Halsey herself, she starts going towards a transport to be taken off planet, so she'll probably start just somewhere in the galaxy.
Doing Halsey shit.
So she probably has her own makeshift lab somewhere, and we'll probably just... That'll be very easy to just kind of go right into.
Yeah.
Miranda, Keyes, and Parangoski, they're probably all going to be still at FleetCom. Or maybe Keyes is off fighting some engagement with the Covenant, because I'm sure the Covenant... the Covenant are probably on this... I actually didn't even put the Covenant on this thing, but it's actually good. Like, where do we think they are? Like, they just lost the artifact. So they're probably, like, planet hopping, trying to find it and just glassing everything in sight.
Well, you imagine they're probably enraged over, like, being discovered. So I found it interesting that, like...
Oh, that too.
That this is the first Covenant planet we've gotten to, yeah. And we found their holy place, defiled it, the demon came in, kicked everyone's ass, robbed their artifact and left, killed their blessed one. So you'd imagine they're all up in arms.
Yeah, they're probably... Yeah. No, I don't even think of that, but you're absolutely right.
I wonder if this is, like... It probably isn't, but like I was going to say, could this be the start of the schism? Could we see brutes against elites here because elites failed at the holy place? But no, I'm saying that out loud. There was a shit ton of brutes there as well, so maybe not.
Yeah, there were, but I mean,
they have hinted that we're getting Covenant characters, so I'm presuming we're getting the Arbiter in here.
Yeah, and the Arbiter is heavily teased.
Yeah.
I think the Arbiter armor is seen in some of the promotional trailers.
Do we think Keith David? Do we get a voice?
I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, do you make the Arbiter Thel? Because, like, that would change how Thel became the Arbiter from core canon, because he didn't become the Arbiter until after the destruction of the first Halo.
Maybe he's not the Arbiter yet, so maybe he's just...
Yeah, but I mean, it's the TV show. They can kind of make whatever changes they need to make for the story. But it could just be an Arbiter character, much like Kai, Riz, and Vanek are just Spartan characters. And we just get some random name, and it's like, oh, I'm the Arbiter, and then we learn what the Arbiter title is. It would be cool if it was Keith David. But at the same time, like... I don't know, if you change so much about the character, but then you have the voice actor and the name come back in, then it's like, is it even worth having that character in?
And I'm thinking too, like, they're going to speak exclusively Sangheili, so it probably doesn't even matter who's doing the voice, because you're not going to tell.
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. I hope to get more Covenant characters.
I'm perfectly happy with just random Arbiter, and just, okay, it's a new character, we'll learn what the Arbiter role is, and how, it lines in with the Covenant.
I think it's Telvedum. I think we're getting a Sangheili character that we recognize.
Booping it in.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Then we've talked about Soren and Quan again. Soren's just back in the rubble with his family.
Yep.
And Quan is on Madrigal with a new renowned purpose of well protection.
Yeah.
And the McKee is dead, ?
Probably not. I think they bring her back.
Dead, not dead.
Yeah.
So, but that's where we leave everybody. Dave, is there anything in particular that we haven't discussed already that you want to see in season 2, or anything from season 1 as like, I really want them to improve upon this, or I want to see more of that, or just take out Quan entirely? Like, what are your thoughts?
I think so, but they're not going to. So we know these characters are here. So I just hope they give that story more relevance. I know from the episode name guide, it's like, it's very exciting, it's very enticing. I think this season is going to make and break the show as a whole. It's starting off from
honestly, yeah, that's true. Like, if this is another bad season, well, I mean, the first one I wouldn't say is
bad.
Inherently bad, but it was not great. And I think I gave it like a 50% because it was like a flip in the coin whether I liked something or disliked it. I may like it a little bit more than 50% now. But
Same.
yeah, if it's another like mixed reaction, like it could be very detrimental.
Yeah, because like season 2 was greenlit before season 1 came out, and I don't think that's been said of season 3. And presumably we're getting multiple seasons because, like,
I mean, I would be shocked if we didn't get a season 3, even with bad fan reaction. Because, or I guess if it was so bad, but like if season 2 is ending with Halo, then season 3 has to be
on the Halo,
or maybe it's a mixture of CE and Halo 2. They kind of combine those.
I would say they would, yeah. They would have to combine most of those game events together, yeah.
Or maybe they just lead into the trilogy and you learn about the arc and all that kind of. I mean, that's a whole nother episode, but yeah, like to your point, like season 2 could make or break this show.
That's how I'm feeling about it. Now, going into season 2, I'm very excited, like more excited than I thought I was going to be, because I don't know what it was, just about the trailers, just seeing the promotional material. I think season 1 did this to me as well, where I was just like very nervous, but also like the casting seemed really good. Okay, they're doing their own canon. You get over that really quickly. You're kind of, okay, it makes sense. You're kind of free. So what are you going to do? Not knowing what going into the show was very exciting. And that's kind of how I'm feeling now, because we know we have reached, that's like the Halo storyline that everybody loves. So like we're coming into this not knowing how they're going to change it, how they're going to do it. Halsey is off planet, so she's not a part of what we're trying to do, but we have episode names called Sword and Visegrad, so you're kind of going, holy shit, okay, we know locations, which can kind of imply the storyline or the plot of those areas. So yeah, very exciting, man, going into season 2.
Yeah, I think I have the same sort of giddy optimism that I had when season 1 was gearing up. And doing the retrospective of season 1 and kind of getting back into Halo TV Plus, it's kind of reigniting that giddy optimism. So I'm not blindly optimistic, but I think I am more optimistic than probably most fans are for season 2. I like I said, I enjoyed rewatching season 1 despite all the gripes I had along the way, and I just hope that it's entertaining. You know, like one of my favorite moments just in the show is like when Cortana's like born and she like talks like Jen Taylor's voice. Like,
oh, it's a great moment.
And honestly, you know what I mean? It makes you smile if you love the games and all that. And it's like, this is so cool to like see this manifest, even if that's just like a 15-second moment. Like that's a very great moment, like in the span of the show. So I just hope they have more of those moments and it's just kind of throughout. And yeah, I think there's a lot at stake. And from what we've seen, they have the potential to kind of blow us away with the fall of Reach and everything being such a pivotal event in core canon. And yeah, I'm excited to see what it becomes.
And I hope the music's better. I wasn't mad on the music of season 1. I thought the Halo themes were very underused.
Trying to think, I had just kind of a blank reaction to the music,
which you should not have for Halo. Do you know what I mean?
No, you shouldn't. I had some. I was like, oh, I hear the Gregorian chants, and it's like, okay, this sound like, honestly, they should just use our soundtrack. Like our soundtrack would just be so much better. I keep raving about it almost every episode. I love our soundtrack so much, and the show should just use ours.
You tell him, Oran. You tell him.
So the listeners are probably listening to it right now as we cue the outro music.
100%.
But before I close out, though, we did have 2 responses from our Discord. I asked our fans what they want from season 2, and Master Beef says, less jumping around, stick with a storyline. Even if it's not canon, at least make it a good story. Which I think is kind of just the moral of everything, because like we have a great ensemble of characters, and I don't think there's a character like minus Quan, which I think is a bad character, but like the actor and all the other characters are doing such a good job. I just think they need to be written better with a more cohesive story, and it has potential to be really good. We've kind of said that maybe 3 or 4 times now. So I agree with you, Master Beef, and I hope that comes into fruition. And then our glorious Discord leader, Matt, says that he wants a Halo in the Halo TV show, which I also want. So,
all right, bad news for you guys. I don't think you're getting a Halo in this season.
You don't think so?
No. And
do you think? Okay.
The fact that we're saying, okay, it's the fall of Reach, so that just means I know how the show kind of starts and how it ends, and I am okay with the show ending with the intro being with the intro of CE, of it being, I want to see Captain Keyes, I want to see Pillar Bottom, I want to see Cortana, I want to see Chief on a ship heading towards Halo. I think that's an okay place to end this season, to get there.
I agree. So this is something that Aaron and I discussed last episode, so I don't want to get too into the weeds for the listeners to rehash, but it was a conversation of like how much of on Halo do we get versus hinting at it for the future, because it's all a matter of how you kind of close a story and start the next story. And I'll just say I agree with you. My gut's telling me like more or less the last shot will be all of our characters looking outside of the hull of the ship, and in the distance next to the planet is the Halo. And then they're just going to be like, what's that? And Cortana can be like, it's Halo. And then bam, it cuts. Yeah. And then you're like, curse you, Kiki. And then we have to wait another 2 years.
And then the show gets cancelled and we never get Halo in a Halo TV show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, all right. Well, I think we'll kind of wrap it up there. Thank you, David, for joining me.
Thank you, Oran, for having me.
Listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Halo TV Plus. Halo the Series Season 2 premieres exclusively on Paramount Plus this Thursday. Remember, Episode 1 and 2 are going to be airing, so it's going to be a very busy weekend for Halo TV Plus. We're going to do 4 episodes. Because remember, we do a commentary episode and an analysis episode for each TV episode. So Sanctuary and Sword are the first 2 episodes. Sanctuary commentary will air on Saturday the 10th. Sanctuary analysis will be Sunday the 11th. Sword commentary will be Monday the 12th. And Sword analysis will be on February 13th. So 4 consecutive days of content. You get to digest all of that. And then on the 15th, we get episode 3 and we do it all over again. I'm still confirming my guests, so I'll keep it a surprise of who we're going to have, but I've been locking in some of the Evolve hosts for later in the season, so you get to hear everyone's sort of take as we journey through Season 2, and we'll do a Season 2 recap at the end, much like we did for Halo TV Plus Season 1. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, you can find every episode to all of the shows that Evolve produces on our website, evolvedhalo.com. It features links to our Discord server, Patreon page, Xbox Live Club, and all of our other social medias as well. Like I said, Facebook, Instagram, and everything in between. Once again, another special shout out to our patrons for supporting Evolved and making all of our shows possible. Head over to patreon.com/Halo Evolved to learn more. And lastly, if you like this show, please rate it, leave a review. I greatly appreciate all the feedback that we receive from our listeners so I can improve the quality of the show. And you could even leave us an email or a voicemail. Our email is podcastevolved@gmail.com, and our Google phone number is 205-EVOLVED, which is 205-386-5833. And with that, I've been your host, Oran, and until next time, evolve!